Sally was convicted of second-degree murder after pleading guilty in Calumet County Superior Court, Washington State. She spent 5 days in the county jail while room was made for her in prison. A maximum sentence would have kept her there till the 25th of November 2001. The prosecutor recommended 9.5 years. The judge thought 10 years was even more appropriate. The sentencing guidelines were 10 years and 4 months to 13 years 4 months. She was given a punishment well below the norm for a crime like hers. Now, I was a prison guard at the United States Penitentiary in Marion, Illinois for 23 years. And my name is David Lehman, and this is just a part of my story. Now, if you haven't watched the first part of this about Sally Ann Tucker, I would recommend that you do, or this stuff here just, it makes sense, but it just doesn't fill in the whole picture. Sally was given prisoner number 26. We'll just wait a second there until that goes by. Sally was given a prisoner number 269547 at Washington Corrections Center for Women, a maximum security prison, on April 15, 1980. She was in the maximum custody wing for only a month or so. Her security classification was changed from max to close. Her first 3 years of prison, she seems to have done pretty well for herself. She continued to be a quiet woman. She kept her thoughts to herself. When she did interact with other prisoners, it was appropriate but very superficial. She had only one friend, and that was another Indian woman. Sally had a lot of issues that she found hard to talk about, the murder of her baby being one. She thought her early childhood was very rough, and she found it was hard to come to grips with what happened to her before she was adopted at age 6. She was referred to Dr. Polka to participate in one-on-one counseling sessions. Sally did participate in the sessions with Dr. Polka, but found some subjects hard to discuss, like I said before. As time went on, Sally became more self-assured. She was also always introspective, but had begun to accept her strengths and weaknesses. She developed more feelings of responsibility for her actions and pro-social attitudes. Sally participated in recreational activities and became a very good roller skater and, playing racquetball. She was so good at recreation, in fact, that they made her a helper from August 1980 until April 1983. Her attendance and work performance were excellent. She was praised for her work and promoted. It was noted in her record that she was very good with the special needs inmates and helped them participate in sports. Sally was given a highly sought-after job of dog trainer. The state of Washington Department of Corrections trains dogs for the use of disabled persons. The job of a trainer is a highly desirable position for a prisoner. She did well in the dog training classes. It was her desire to continue in the profession upon release. She wanted to continue to train dogs for the handicap or become a veterinarian. During the training, she received an outstanding student performance. She is devoted to dogs and loved working with them. She hoped one day to have her own kennel. Her hopes were high, and her dreams were big at this time of her life. In the first 3 years of her incarceration, Sally was given the privilege of a trailer visit with her parents and brothers 8 times. The authorities felt this helped to improve the relationship with her family. She could be a little moody at times, and it was best to go, leave her alone when she was in one of her bad moods. She earned 38 college credits and maintained a 3.45 GPA. Sally had various jobs while locked up. She was a kitchen worker, storeroom clerk, gardener's helper, recreation assistant, dog trainer, and worked in the prison canteen. She stayed there until February 27, 1985. That's less than 5 years if you're counting. When she was released, she went to live with a friend in Seattle. Her parents continued to support her and had put aside $2,000 for the purpose. When they let her out of the Purdy Treatment Center, Sally only had $20 of her own funds. Her parents stuck by her, as always, and was a resource for her. The prison gave her $40 to pay a bus ticket to Seattle. As an American Indian, she was entitled to part of a settlement on her behalf with the federal government. Her tribe had been awarded cash for treaty violations. Her portion was $8,154.43, which was held in her name for her use upon release. She said she would use that money to get a residence of her own. Further income from that program would be released to her periodically in the future. To stay free, all she had to do was get a job and stay out of trouble. It's not such a hard thing to ask. I did it, and so did most of my friends. Of course, she had the additional requirement of reporting to a community corrections officer. That way the state could keep a tab on her progress in rehabilitation. The minimum sentence of 10 years was imposed by the judge, but Sally was released on parole in less than half that time. Even the state of Washington plays the game of give them a long sentence and then takes most of it back. The judge gets reelected for dealing with crime, and the criminal spends a short time behind bars. The murdered kid gets hardly a mention in the local papers at the time of the murder, then never again. Everybody's happy. Just to mention the newspaper for a second, all the Longview Daily News said about the crime was that baby Tucker had died. One line was all the coverage this crime got. It seems that only I and a very few people recall this one life. Only Sally ever saw the baby alive. Speaking of seeing the baby alive, the two people that Sally was living with when she stabbed her baby to death, Donna and Warren Allsworth, she removed them first thing from her visiting list when they got to Purdy Prison. For some reason, the people who took her in and fed her while she was pregnant with no place to go were no longer worth visiting anymore. Warren and Donna had gotten into all kinds of trouble and problems when Sally talked the couple into helping her dispose of the dead baby. She did continue to see her mother and father, who were still living in her childhood home at 2186 Florida, Longview, Washington. That was only 13 streets away from my child home near the 800 block of Florida. Her brother, Leonard, visited her from time to time. Sally had a few issues when she was in prison. Her mother and father tried to send her a check for $50 in the mail. This isn't permissible. Money has to be put on her account and not sent to the prisoner. The prison mailed the check back. September of '83, the prison mailed a letter back to John W. Boffin of Kelso, Washington. He was discussing future plans that were prohibited activities in his letter to Sally. The next month, he tried to send her a letter in code, but that was rejected. One way around the send prisoners money restriction is to send them stamps. Now, Beverly Hanning of Bremerton tried this trick in November of 1983. D.L. Vasquez tried to stamp dodge in January of '84. September 27, 1984, Sally got into a spat with Officer O'Brien of Cell Block G4. It's the job of every correctional officer to search for contraband. One of the best ways to keep stuff out of your cell house is to search all the convicts coming into and out of the block. You do this by standing in the door, all during movements, and pat search everybody who wants to enter the block. As far as Sally was concerned, this was unacceptable. She was told if she didn't comply with the search, then she'd be denied leaving the cell block to participate in recreational activities. Seems that Sally just didn't understand that she has no right to privacy at all while in prison. But she eventually learned. Now, when you walk out of prison, it's not just as easy as snapping your fingers to get a job. I know. About the same time Sally was released, I was released from active duty military service. I actually served more time than she did. Sally had the support of the Department of Corrections in the form of a work release program. A great idea. It allowed her to become acclimated to make the small decisions again we all make when living a life in a democracy. I was shown a film on how not to kill myself while driving home. End of my support. I hear from people now and then that we treat criminals better than our military. From my experience in both the prison system, the Army, and the Coast Guard, I can testify the military are treated far worse. Then again, the military, for the most part, are not nearly as mentally and morally weak as most prisoners. Therefore, the military is expected to do better on their own with less support. A prisoner once asked me what I thought of his business plan upon release. He wanted to be self-employed. My advice was to forget self-employment and concentrate on getting any job he could do and keep it for 5 years. After 5 years, if he could stay out of prison, then he could think of starting his own business. In prison, you have no say over anything. You're told to do everything. When to get up, what to eat, what work you'll do. Things like what movie you can watch and where is not your choice. After several years of this life, the ability to make even the simplest decisions are difficult. A prisoner has to let go one step at a time. The best way to explain this is like after you have an operation, you need physical therapy. You'll have to check in with the doctor and your therapist to help you regain your strength and range of motion. The same thing for when you get out of prison. Like most prisoners I've known, Sally had unrealistic expectations upon release. Her plan was to get a job and go to school. She thought that she wanted to be a doctor of veterinary medicine. What most people don't realize is that vet school is harder to qualify than medical school for people. The guy taking care of your dog Rufus is usually more qualified than the guy taking care of your mother. In any case, it takes real dedication and guts to finish vet school, not to mention a real academic star just to pass their entrance exam. Sally would never even get a part-time job that worked out for her very well. Sally was sent to the Tacoma pre-release facility. The facility is now closed and no longer exists. I assume that something took its place. The program was, boy, let me get this out of my mouth here. The program there was to get Sally ready to get a job by helping her with job applications, resumes, and interviews. Thanks to their help, Sally was able to get work at the Reynolds work release. Here, she was given support for her substance abuse issues. Sally is a mean and dangerous drunk. Today, this program only caters to male inmates. I find it interesting that Sally did not opt for the program in Longview. Her parents still lived there at the time. I would presume that all of her support would have been in Longview. I know mine was. I went home to Longview right after being released from active duty. Later, I went to the Seattle area for a job. She went right to the King County, Seattle area as soon as she got out. She graduated from the program in August of '85 and was set loose on her own. February 24th, 1986, an arrest warrant was issued for parole violations. When Sally was released on parole, she was supposed to maintain contact with her PO once a month. She had not done so every month as required. She moved and left no forwarding address. When she moved, she didn't have the permission of her PO or tell anybody where she was going. On March the 20th, 1986, Sally gave birth to her daughter, Paula Lynn Tucker, at Swedish Hospital in Seattle. The next day, Sally signed a voluntary foster care request. The state discovered the murder and conviction and immediately filed to take Sally's daughter from her. Part of Sally's problems were her deep-seated anger. She was a very angry woman, as reported by more than one professional who had seen her. It was obvious she would have been helped with some treatment for her mental issues. To get parole, she had promised to seek help for her mental health issues. The Indian Center in Tacoma had referred her in December of '85 to Mrs. Alicia Miramontes for individual therapy. The two women had a phone conversation, and Mrs. Miramontes suggested that Sally would benefit from a class in staff management at St. Joseph's Hospital in Tacoma. She wanted her to see her, on an individual basis about her anger. And this pissed Sally off. She screamed at the woman that she had no anger issues and then slammed the phone down. Sounds like, she didn't have any anger issues. When Sally did bother to show up at her parole officer's office, sometimes without an appointment, she presented herself as very angry. The PO said she acted tense at best and confused and angry at worst. She claimed that she had a friend who wanted to kill herself. She had been given a waiver and didn't have to pay the $15 a month on her criminal fines until she had found better employment. I can find no documents that she ever paid her fines at all. Looks like they just let it go. Now that was part one. and we're going to continue on with more parts of this video. So I'll see you soon. Stay tuned and hit the bell to make sure that you're notified when I post that next video. So thank you very much. And I know I hate doing multi-part videos too, but it's the only thing that I can do to get through this big long one. So remember, hit the bell and subscribe, and you'll get notified of when I post this other part of the video. And as always, thank you very much for watching.